welcome to Traditional Painting the Digital Way. This is where I use digital painting apps to teach traditional painting techniques. This is part 2 of my Springtime Path series, and in this video we're going to work on the big tree and add in the fence. If you want to follow along traditionally, check out part 1 in this series where I have a list of all the paint, canvas, and brushes that I use. We're going to be using Infinite Painter for Android, and I'm going to go ahead and use the Leo brush to paint in the big tree. And you can go ahead and make sure that this is sort of on a separate layer so that if you mess up you can go back and erase. And so here I'm using sort of a grayish mixture to this tree, but it's darker than the middle ground trees. And if you're following along traditionally, you would use ultramarine blue and burnt sienna with some white acrylic gesso, but not as much white as you would put in for the background trees. And you just want kind of gnarled branch shapes, and you don't want it to look real straight or anything. And then I'm adding in the posts for the fences here, and you would just use kind of a burnt umber or burnt sienna color if you're following along traditionally. And you can use your number 6 filbert or number 6 flat for some of these, or your number 3 round also for the fence. And then here I'm adding in sort of the grass and the weeds and all the bushes that are underneath the trees here. And I'm using the Pollock brush in Infinite Painter for that. And you would use sort of a middle green color, and you just kind of want to make pockets of light and dark for this underbrush and this grass. And if you're following along traditionally, you can use your number 8 bristle brush and just tap lightly on the canvas with the end of it and make sure that all the brush fibers splay out so that you get that real grassy look that you can get with the Pollock brush and Infinite Painter. And so I'm just using kind of a middle green color, and you want to alternate dark and light colors and use your colors in sort of a zigzag pattern. Just make sure that they kind of connect so that it doesn't look all disjointed. You want to kind of connect the colors together. And here I'm adding in some purple to kind of give some shadow colors to under the tree and under the fence and also kind of under the bushes. And then I'm adding some more green on the top, and you'd use hooker's green probably for this one if you're following along with your acrylics, and oxazine purple for the purple color in acrylics. And then I want to go ahead and add some lighter color, so we would use a phthalo yellow color, phthalo yellow green if you're following along traditionally. You just want kind of a lighter green on your bushes there, and then I'm adding an even darker green in the front and in the corners, and that sort of creates an eye stopper in the foreground and in your corners. And eye stoppers are things that you put on the edges of your canvas to keep your viewer's eye interested. So you put an object in the corner of your painting or darken it so that your viewer's eye stays in the middle of your painting. And here I'm working on highlighting the big tree that's in the middle of our painting. And you can use cadmium orange with burnt sienna and some white acrylic gesso. If you're following along with your acrylics, this will make the light brown color. You want a lightish brown color. You don't want a real white one. You kind of want it orangey looking. And so I'm leaving some of the dark underneath. And then I added a little bit of blue on the back. And our light source is going to be coming from the right side. So the blue will be a reflected highlight that I put on the trees, like some of the light is bouncing off onto the ground and reflecting onto the tree. And you can kind of smudge that in with schoolhouse chalk or flat oil for one of your blending brushes. And then I wanted to add the leaves to this tree, so I'm using a darker green color. Again, you want to start with darker green if you're following along with acrylics, you want your dark colors first and then you put on your highlights. If you're following along with watercolors, you would do the exact opposite. You start with your light colors and then you can add your darks. So I'm adding in some purples and some darker greens here, and then adding in a lighter green here, and I'm using the Renoir brush for this because it gives a leafy pattern, and you can also use the Pollock brush and it will give you a leafy look as well. And you want to kind of keep some of the sky showing through your tree because you want it to not be a solid mass. You want the sky to peek through a little bit through the branches and the leaves of your tree. And then I want to add some more branches that are coming out of the leaves because I've sort of covered them up. So you want to add the final little twiggy branches that stick out, and you want to add some over the pathway. You want them to be all twisted and crooked like they're just poking out of the leaves there. And that just makes it look more natural. You don't want real straight looking branches. You want them to look all gnarled and crooked because that's the way most tree branches are. And so you want to go ahead and just add a little bit of some twiggy bushes also into the grass. And that just creates the effect of branches and underbrush poking out of the grass and all the bushes there. So you want to add a few of those around by the trees and just some in the front, some by the fence, some in the middle ground a little bit, and you want to keep them kind of light, a light brown color or a really light white color. And then I want to go ahead and add the wire to the fence, and you would use your script brush if you're following along traditionally to make a really thin line, and you'd make a really thin mixture of acrylic. You would mix your paint with water and thin it down, and just go ahead and make the lines across the fence. And it doesn't matter if they're broken. In fact, you kind of want them to look a little broken up because that will show the glints of light on your fence. So that makes it look like the light is glinting off of the wire on the fence there. And then I'm just kind of highlighting the post, and I added an old wire gate there that's fallen down in the front. And I just want to go ahead and take some white acrylic gesso with orange mixed into it to give it the highlight on the fence there. And make sure that you save frequently when you're working digitally, because sometimes your program crashes and you'll be sorry if you don't. And then here I'm adding some more darker bushes to the middle ground, just a little bit because I wanted something on the other side of that tree to the left. And then I'm adding a little bit more right there underneath the tree to give some more shadow look. So this is the end of part 2 of my Springtime Path series. And in part 3, the final part, we'll add the final touches to the painting and add all the highlights and all the springtime flowers. So if you're interested in that, hit the subscribe button, and thanks so much for watching. Thank you so much for your support. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments down below, and I will catch you later.